three key oversight committees to urgently investigate the matter. Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Justice and Constitutional Development Chairperson, Ola Ngola, says they will deliver their joint findings before the 23rd of this month.
We've been given a mandate to look into the matter in a form of a joint committee arrangement, which is sitting next week, and report to the National Assembly before the 23rd day of July 2025. So the mandate is that let's look into what has been alleged and advise Parliament what form should it take, because the matter at hand is not properly attended. It may lead to unintended consequences. We assure South Africans that consequence management will definitely follow immediately after we have determined the shape of how Parliament must deal with the matter.
Lastly, the United Nations Programme on HIV and AIDS is set to release a new report on global infections today. This after warning that the U.S. cuts to the humanitarian funding and other donors could result in millions of new cases and AIDS-related deaths. The UN says previous American funding had helped to cut HIV infections by 60% since 2000. The executive director of UNAIDS program, Winnie Byanyima, says funding is the responsibility of the global community.
Funding crisis is not the result of just one country cutting. We need to renew the global solidarity. Global challenges like a pandemic, like HIV, can't be solved by individual countries. It's a global effort that can help us end a global challenge.
Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, so Human Rights Court rules Caster Semenya did not get a fair hearing in Switzerland over track's sex eligibility, while Group B will take centre stage at the Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament as the second matches are set to get underway later on today. Details of these and other stories coming up at the bottom of the hour.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Oh, thank you to Onele Nzinzi with our news headlines and Msibudu Makura with our with our news updates and Msibudu Makura with our sports headlines. It is 12:07 Central African Time and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's Audio Bouquet Channel 802, on OpenView Channel 628 and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406 9126 #Africa Updates, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. Now, today on #Africa Update Asks, US President Donald Trump recently hosted leaders from Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal to talk about commercial opportunities. But honestly, why are African leaders so keen on keeping the US happy instead of looking to their neighbors right here in Africa for growth and opportunities? And we're asking why African leaders are keen on keeping the US happy instead of looking to their neighbors right here on the African continent for growth and opportunities. Share your thoughts and your views. #Africa Update Us.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
SABC Sports brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting on the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC2. Tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, and the heroics that made rugby history. I'll stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. And don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 Central African Time on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Our murder-accused and controversial businessman Vusumuzi Kat Matlala is once again under the spotlight after he was found with a cell phone in prison. On Sunday, South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi alleged Matlala has links to the Minister Senzo Mchunu. The allegations of his alleged influence and links in the disbandment of the political killing task team has grabbed the attention of government, the media, citizens, politicians and those in the security industry. But who is Kat Matlala and what is the controversy around him? Neria Hlakutsa filed this report.
Vusumuzi Matlala is no ordinary businessman. For years, he's been living a lavish lifestyle, mainly through state procurement. He came on the radar when murdered whistleblower Babita Deokaran flagged his shell companies for possible fraudulent activities at the Tembisa hospital worth millions. Defend Our Democracy Executive Director Naledi Khwadi says they have been calling for the kingpins behind the corruption at Tembisa Hospital to face the music.
Those tenders still being given out in the manner that they're given out speak to deep-rooted corruption. Because when you follow due process and you investigate who the individual is, you find the number of investigations that speak to the individual in question. You find that there are allegations that have been made that are damning, that would require, at the very least, a municipality or a state institution to distance themselves from it. So why was he given tenders?
His company, Medicare 24 Tshwane District, bagged a 360 million rand tender from police in June last year. The 3-year health risk management deal has since been cancelled by the National Police Commissioner. News 24 investigative journalist Jeff Wiggs explains how the tender process was flawed from the start.
Through a minnow company with no track record in the occupational health industry, which had only existed for 5 years and was actually run out of a Boksburg strip mall, had won this 360 million rand police tender. And that was huge. Because for us, we knew that Vusumuzi Matlala was an active subject of both an SIU investigation and a corruption probe by the Hawks.
Matlala is awaiting trial at Kgosi Mampuru prison for allegedly planning a hit on his former lover. Even still, his troubles follow him after a mobile phone was found in his possession. Spokesperson for civil organization Action Society, Juanita Dupree, believes the disgraced entrepreneur is not working alone.
Let's get him out there, out of the system. But I'm sure it might seem like he's a one-man show, but if we don't fix the problems of the corruption in the police, in the top ranks, another person is just going to fill his place. I'm sure he's not a one-man show. He might have all the profit at the moment and be the face of it, but I'm sure the next person is standing in the flanks.
KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner believes Matlala and fellow businessman Brown Mogotsi were influential in the political killings task team being disbanded. According to Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, Matlala's name comes up in investigations on the moving of contraband and illegal weapons across the country. Special Crimes investigator Mike Bolhayes has described Matlala as dangerous.
Vusi is an extremely dangerous man and also a very important man for those who are involved with organized crime, especially for those in government who are involved and senior police officials. He is a strong arm for those, and he will commit the dirty works. And he is operating, funding, and in cahoots with Boko Haram, and I would say those in the taxi industry as well, the hitmen and the gangsters there.
Those who have been watching and monitoring Matlala's moves agree that he has indeed been getting away with a lot of transgressions. I am Nerea Hlakutsa in Johannesburg.
South African political party Action SA is leading a protest outside the KwaZulu-Natal province police headquarters to demand urgent action to address the deepening crisis within South African police services, the SAPS, and the criminal justice system. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by SABC reporter in the KwaZulu-Natal province, Fanele Sibonge Mhlongo. Fanele Sibonge, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Yes, good afternoon.
Now, tell us about the protest action that's happening, that is underway. What's the turnout like? Give us just a background of what's happening on the ground there.
Yes, we are here outside the headquarters of the SAPS in KwaZulu-Natal. There's just a handful of Action SA members who are protesting here in support of KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Untanta Mkhwanazi following the media briefing that he had last Sunday, in which he made some allegations, there were some allegations that he made whereby he accused senior police officials, including Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, of meddling in police operations and having links to some criminal syndicates. So the Action SA members are now here calling on President Cyril Ramaphosa to take action against the police minister and ensure that there are thorough investigations that are done to see whether they are implicated in the allegations that were made by Commissioner Untanta Mkhwanazi.
Now, besides Action SA, who else is there? Are there any other people who've joined, to protest with Action SA? You mentioned that it's just a handful of people.
Yes, it's just a handful of people. These people are below even 200 that are gathered here. The person that we've seen who is here, who's also a member of the Action SA, is the Member of Parliament of the Action SA, Darlene James, who has also joined these Action SA members here in KwaZulu-Natal, calling for the suspension of Police Minister Senzo Mchunu. These people are gathered just about 100 meters away from the headquarters of the police, and there is a park that has been demarcated with the police tape. That is where now they are gathered, and they are relaying their message to the SAPS management here in the province.
Just very quickly, in wrapping up, there have been calls for President Ramaphosa to intervene. Do you know if the president is likely to do this? What are the murmurs there?
At the moment, it's not clear what steps are going to be taken by President Cyril Ramaphosa. However, the leader of Action SA here in KwaZulu-Natal, Zwakele Mngcango, is calling on the president to take action against the officials that have been named by Untanta Mkhwanazi. But the Action SA is also saying that they are against the establishment of a commission of inquiry. Instead, they want people who have been fingered by Mkhwanazi to be arrested and face music in court instead of going to answer at the Commission of Inquiry, because they believe that the Commission of Inquiry does not do justice whenever there are such allegations.
All right, Fanele Sibonge Siyabonga, thank you for joining us on Africa Update. As SABC reporter in the KwaZulu-Natal province, Fanele Sibonge Mhlongo joining us on the line.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
It is 18 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Now, US President Donald Trump hosted leaders from Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal to discuss commercial opportunities. During a televised lunch at the White House, the African leaders lavished Trump with praise while encouraging U.S. economic partnership. Nisaise Mulumbi, the head of a leading non-governmental organization in Gabon, says the Trump administration's focus on Africa was down to increasing competition from rival powers, including China and Russia, adding that the countries that were invited have important minerals. And to unpack this, we are joined on the line by analyst Dr. David Matsanga. Dr. Matsanga, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, Lulu. Good afternoon, Africa. Good morning, Africa. Some parts of Africa in the morning session. Thank you, and the globe listening to us. Thank you.
Now, Dr. Masanga, Trump invitation to leaders from these specific countries, I mean, Guinea-Bissau, Gabon, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal. What could it be? Could it only be about the economics, or is there something that we are perhaps missing?
First of all, this is a very dangerous trend that Africa and African Union must condemn. We have African Union Secretariat. We have African Union as our organization that unites us. For this method of colonial imperialistic approach of divide and rule, call 5, call 2, call 1, harass 1, intimidate 1, is the same thing that Bismarck, and I want to speak my mind, Bismarck used when he's looking at Africans as second-class inferior citizens, when they partitioned us without ourselves asking whether we want to be partitioned or not. Trump must and should be told without any reservations that we Pan-Africans, the younger generation, stand up and defend this continent against such divide and rule imperial doctrines of divide and rule, calling people for minerals. That's what they want to do for us. That's what they always call us. You call people and they say, do you have minerals? Do you have this? Do you have gold? Where is the American democracy? And African leaders are trooping in, walking, sitting, eating, as if there is no food in their countries. I am particularly very upset with that man of Senegal. He came to power through my television station interviews with you. You saw it. He was in jail. Nobody was even telling people to remove him from jail. Then he's there seated, telling people, I have come. What? African leaders better get a better way. And African Union, I think it is dead.
What should the African Union be doing differently? Why do you feel that they're so indifferent and using your own words, dead?
It is dead. We elected a captured man, captured by the French. The French have penetrated our union. The French have divided our continent. They divide and create conflict in our continent. Now Trump is coming to divide us further. He's calling leader by leader. How many minerals do you have? Where is the democracy that America boasts itself of? It says democracy. Where is it? Let's talk about agreements. Sale agreements. We are selling ourselves and the future of our children. Congo sold itself minerals. Has the war ended? Has the war ended? Is the ceasefire holding? No. Very soon, Trump will have to see that what he's doing is rubbish, equivalent to stupidity, sardonic, prudish. I don't know whether he knows this English. He better knows that with some of us who studied English, studied with very hard conditions. Therefore, we know English better. He can ask a man from Liberia whether he knows English, but not Masanga. I can teach him political science up to the end if he wants. But Africans have come to speak. We must speak. The other time he embarrassed Ramaphosa. We kept quiet. Eh? How many presidents are you going to embarrass? Are we you women? Are we? Do you want to marry us, Mr. Trump? Let Trump here. Do you marry to what? You want to marry us, men? We are men on this continent. We are not against any American citizen, but we want to have workmanship, working condition, programs that help both of us on equal terms. Support us, but don't direct us, don't humiliate us, don't police us. You have not ended the war in Sudan. The people of Sudan are dying every day. You are calling people for minerals. Why don't you help us to end the war in Sudan? Why don't you send your tomahawks to stop the humanitarian catastrophe that is taking place in Libya? You dismembered Libya, you people in America, and we kept quiet. Gaddafi was feeding his people. His people now are the poorest on the continent of Africa. How long are we going to keep quiet? And our presidents, whom we elect with majority votes, not fake, not through courts, like Trump went to court. Not our presidents we elect sound like children. No.
Dr. Matsanga, why does it seem like African leaders are keen to bow down to criticism when it comes from Donald Trump instead of just standing up against him? Where are our leaders lacking?
Some of them are paupers. They were elected when they were paupers. Part of science. Omutima Muvi. Hearts. They don't have their country at how? Why don't you stand like a Nyerere? Why don't you stand like a Sekuture? Why don't you stand like a Senghor? Why don't you stand like a Nkrumah, Lumumba, Obote, Jomo Kenyatta, Gabriel Nasser, America Bureau? Why? Why do you go there begging? Oh, sir. Even one of the presidents was saying, sir, that man called us shithole. Sorry to use these words. He called us shithole. Calling us shithole. Then you want our minerals. Go to hell. He's not God. He's just a human being like us. If he wants the minerals, let him put down the money. And one of the things that I want to alert the world, they are calling those leaders to isolate Burkina Faso. But Trump, you touch Burkina Faso, you have brought hell in the Sahel region. We are aware of your mechanism. We are aware what you want to do to Burkina Faso. You are aware that you want to isolate these countries in the Sahel, then attack Traore. We are aware. Every African, this time it will be a do or die. Mister, you are doing some things you wanted. What do you want? Nobel Prize? We can give it without you mortgaging us, humiliating our leaders. Humiliating. And
Dr. Matsanga, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. We'll leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
I am really very up, very upset today. I'm sorry for this. But I have got to speak maybe like this, how painful it is, so that Africa can hear me. Thank you very much, Lulu. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Dr. Matsanga. That is an analyst, Dr. David Matsanga, joining us on the line. And once again, we apologize for the profanity from our guest who has stated that he is quite emotional about this topic today. It is 28 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa One. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa One. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
It is 29 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Mzansi, this is more than just a game, it's a celebration of history. 30 years ago, the Springboks united our nation with that iconic Rugby World Cup victory. And now, the mighty Boks are back. Don't miss South Africa versus Italy in the 30th anniversary commemoration match this Saturday, the 12th of July at 4 o'clock Central African time. Now watch it live on SABC2 or stream it anywhere on the SABC Plus app. Download the SABC Plus app today on iOS, Android and or your smart TV. Switch to stream, no subscription. SABC Sport, for the love of the game.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 12:30 Central African time, and our news headlines up next with Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. The UN mission in Libya has urged all Libyan parties to avoid actions or political rhetoric that could trigger escalation or renewed clashes in Tripoli. Thus, following reports of continued military buildup in and around the city, members of different political parties have started to arrive at the Polo Sports Ground in Masoyi in the Mpumalanga province of South Africa for former Deputy President David Mabuza's memorial service. And authorities in the Eastern DRC are overwhelmed as more cases of cholera continue to be recorded in South Kivu. That Doctors Without Borders has treated at least 600 patients. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African perspective.
Thank you, Onele. We'll say good afternoon to Msibudi Makura with our sports update.
Africa Update with Lulu Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. A very good afternoon from the Sports Desk. We'll start with this story that broke just an hour ago. So the European Court of Human Rights has reignited Caster Semenya's long legal battle against sports authorities over sex eligibility rules as well as regulations. So this follows its ruling in favour of Caster Semenya. This after finding that Switzerland had violated her right to freedom from discrimination, taken together with her rights to respect her private life and earn a living through sport. The Swiss government was the respondent in this case. So back in 2023, it appealed a ruling requesting the case be referred to the European Court of Human Rights Grand Chamber. Now, the Grand Chamber ruling is indeed final. On to this story now. The Springboks coaching staff believes the wholesale changes made to the team to face Italy will give them an opportunity to try different combinations going forward. The Boks will take on Italy, the Azzurri, in the second test match at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape province on Saturday. Starting flank for Saturday's game, Marco van Staden says Italy had the upper hand at the breakdown last week, but is confident the Azzurri won't get under their skin again.
They had a big focus on the breakdown, disrupting our play and slowing our ball down so we can't get rhythm. So that was definitely a big tactic of them. And yeah, to try and disrupt where they can. But yeah, they played very well together, those three. I think our focus will be on what we can control to try and get us a good clean ball.
On to some tennis news now. Arina Sabalenka is closing on a fourth straight Grand Slam final and a potential Wimbledon showdown with fierce rival Iga Swiatek as she gears up for today's last four clash against Amanda Anisimova. Now, the world number one did not drop a set at the All England Club in the first four rounds, but had to survive an almighty scare to see off 104th ranked Laura Siegemund in the quarterfinals just a few days ago. The Belarusian, who struggled to cope with the varied game of her German opponent, was twice a breakdown in a deciding set before prevailing 4-6, 6-2 and 6-4 in nearly 3 hours on court. The 27-year-old is bidding to reach her first ever Wimbledon final when she takes on American 13 seed Anisimova. Now, Sabalenka won last year's US Open to collect her third major, but then suffered agonizing defeats in the finals of this year's Australian Open as well as the French Open. Now she's facing an opponent who has won 5 of the 8 meetings, though Sabalenka came out on top at Roland Garros just last month. Anisimova, who's ranked below, or rather was ranked below the 400 mark when she returned from a mental health sabbatical at the beginning of 2024 season. Now, the 23-year-old has matched her best ever Grand Slam singles result, equaling her run to the last 4 at the 2019 French Open tournament. And next week, she will jump into the top 10 for the very first time in her career, following, of course, her exploits at the 3rd Grand Slam tournament of the year. Onto this now. Manchester United want to host the 2035 Women's World Cup final in their new 100,000-seater stadium. The club announced plans to build the biggest stadium in the UK, and which will be an iconic new $30 billion ground close to Old Trafford in March of next year. And they are still hoping to realise that co-owner Jim Ratcliffe's desire for a new Old Trafford will be completed within 5 to 6 years, despite, of course, the widespread doubts outside the club over the likelihood of hitting that timescale. So the 2035 World Cup, the Women's World Cup tournament, is expected to be held across 4 nations of the United Kingdom, which is also the sole bidder. The Football Association is also working on a bid to present to football's governing body FIFA by the end of the year, that's setting out its vision now for this year, that tournament in 2035. Now, club sources also say they anticipate a new stadium being open a long time before the 2035 edition, and also believes Ratcliffe's stated timescale from his March announcement is still valid. But they also acknowledge the potential for delays around such is a complex issue, of course hoping to host that 2035 Women's FIFA World Cup. And finally, Red Hills Under-17 netball team has officially made history as the first South African school ever to win a World School Netball World Cup tournament with all the flair, determination as well as heart. Representing South Africa on the world stage, these young legends travelled to Loughborough in England, aka also known as the home of netball in the UK, and came home with gold medals, big smiles as well as memories to last a lifetime. Now, this was also the first time a South African school side has been invited to a World Schools Netball Cup, and Red Hill made sure it would not be the last time. So taking on schools from different continents, 46 teams from 29 schools to be exact, the Red Hill squad showed up and showed off in England. And that's a wrap of your sports news this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibu D. Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu masuala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Channel Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Well, thank you to Msibudi Makura with our sports update, and we say good afternoon to Chandu Gwelegege with our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Nigeria has secured a $747 million syndicated loan led by Dash Bank to finance construction of the first phase of its planned 700-kilometer coastal highway project. Finance Ministry spokesperson Mohammed Manga says the loan is the first of its size for road infrastructure in Nigeria. Dash Bank acted as global coordinator in the syndicate, which includes First Abu Dhabi Bank, African Export-Import Bank, Abu Dhabi Export Office, ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, and Zenith Bank. Manga says the initial section of the highway financed by the loan spans 47.47 kilometers. The entire project is expected to cost around $11 billion and be completed in about 8 years. The highway will eventually link the commercial capital Lagos to the southeastern port city of Calabar. Still in Nigeria, the U.S. has announced sweeping changes to its non-immigrant visa policy for Nigeria. It has cut the duration and conditions under which most Nigerian travelers can enter the country. With effect from the 8th of this month, the U.S. Department of State says nearly all non-immigrant and non-diplomatic visas issued to Nigerian citizens will now be single entry and valid for only 3 months. It says this is part of a global reciprocity realignment, a sharp shift from previous visa terms, which often allowed for multiple entries over 2 years or more. The Nigerian government has not yet commented. In other news, organizers of the Africa Unlocked conference taking place in Cape Town, South Africa, say the gathering has been convened by business to shape Africa's tomorrow. The conference has brought together Africa's most influential business leaders, investors, policymakers, and entrepreneurs. It is hosted by Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. The meeting is in its second year running, has cemented itself as key platform on discussions affecting the continent. Group Head of Agribusiness at Business and Commercial Banking Standard Bank Group, Louis van Revenstein.
It's about 120 of our top business customers coming together here in Cape Town, from as far as Ghana to Kenya, down to South Africa. It's all about how does business shape Africa's tomorrow. It's about this big opportunity of the Africa continent. It's how do we do more trade together? How do we work more together? And how do we capture this big opportunity?
Brazil President Lula da Silva has hit back at U.S. President Donald Trump's announcement of a 50% tariff on Brazilian exports to the U.S., warning that it would be addressed in terms of Brazil's law. President Lula, who just presided over a BRICS Leaders Summit in Rio de Janeiro, has responded on social media to a letter in which President Trump announced a 50% tariff from the 1st of August. Trump also rallied against the trial of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who also faces coup charges for allegedly seeking to remain in power after losing the 2022 presidential election to Lula. Sean Bryce Peace reports from New York.
Trump indicated that the 50% tariff was linked to what he called Brazil's insidious attacks on free elections and censorship orders against American social media companies. President Lula responded that Brazil was a sovereign nation with independent institutions and would not accept any form of tutelage.
Shares in the U.S. food company Kellogg's, best known for its cornflakes, have risen by 50%. This after reports that the chocolate manufacturer Ferrero is close to buying it. The price is believed to be about $3 billion. The BBC's Katie Silver reports.
WK Kellogg owns the likes of Fruit Loops, Frosted Flakes and Rice Krispies in the American market. According to reports in the Wall Street Journal and Financial Times, it might soon be bought by Ferrero, the Italian company behind labels like Ferrero Rocher and Kinder Chocolate. The reported deal values it at more than double its current stock market value. The acquisition would be a big move for Ferrero, which was founded in 1946 and is still headquartered in Italy's Piedmont region, seeing it take a dominant position in the US breakfast cereal market.
Let's have a look at financial indicators at this hour. $1 in Nigeria is at 1,000 naira 530. Botswana 13 pula 21. Kenya the dollar is at 128 shilling 594. Zambia 24 kwacha 30. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 47. Russia 78 rubles 23. India 85 rupees 72. China 71.17. South Africa 17 rand 79 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $3,329. Platinum at $1,355 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $69.90 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you to Chanduko Ligege with our business news. It is 12:44 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Today is Panic Awareness Day, and as we mark the day, it is crucial to highlight the internal battles that often go unnoticed by those around us. Men tend to suffer in silence, fearing the stigma around panic attacks and anxiety. And to speak to us further about the day, we are joined on the line by Roshni Pabu Sita, SADC's project manager for education. Roshni, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Hi. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, tell us more about this day and why it is so important to mark this day.
So Panic Awareness Day is observed annually on the 10th of July, and basically it's dedicated to just raising awareness about panic disorder and the reality of living with panic attacks. It really is just a chance for us to break that silence around a condition that is often misunderstood, minimized, and hidden altogether. I'm so sorry. Just as we start speaking, a helicopter decides to fly overhead.
All right, you're still quite audible, so please go ahead.
Thank you so much. So basically, so many people are experiencing these panic attacks, and so many that do experience these panic attacks are often told to calm down or get over with it, which only adds to that isolation and that fear. So this day, every year, just reminds us that panic is very real, it's very valid, and it is also so treatable. It's also a platform for us to provide education, for us to share stories, and also to encourage those who are so silently suffering to seek help and also to know that they are not alone.
Now, let's talk about who are more prone to panic attacks and how do you get to a point where, a person, an individual suffers from anxiety, panic attacks? How does one get to that point, and how do you diagnose it?
So anyone can experience a panic attack. It's regardless of age, gender, or background. Panic attacks do not discriminate. So research does show that more women experience panic attacks or more women are diagnosed with panic attacks or frequently diagnosed, possibly due to the fact that they report their symptoms or seek help. With most mental health conditions, women frequently talk about what they are feeling and talk about the symptoms that they are experiencing. So when it comes to who is prone to panic attacks, regardless of your age, your gender, your background, your financial standing, anyone could experience a panic attack, but women are more frequently diagnosed with panic attacks.
How do we then educate society on panic attacks and anxiety, and how can one support people who suffer with it?
So I think education starts with awareness and empathy. So days like this help us to talk about it and educate people. So like the webinar that we are going to host tonight at 6:30. SEDEC hosts webinars, we do school talks, we do workplace training, social media campaigns, basically to inform people about what panic attacks really are, including what both the visible symptoms are and the invisible symptoms. And, how do we support people who suffer from them? We listen without judgment. When it comes to someone who's suffering from a panic attack, we don't say things like, just relax, it's all in your head, which is often the first thing we go to. It's our go-to when someone is going through a panic attack. We say, just relax, just calm down, this is all in your head. And then we change that with saying things like, I'm here, you're in a safe place, we'll get through this together. And it's when we have days like this and we talk about it and we educate ourselves, we know about how to change the way we say things. We encourage people to seek professional help. We share resources. SEDEC has online toolkits on our website, which helps, when we go onto these websites and we learn about all these toolkits, it helps during times like this. And I think also creating safe spaces and normalizing these conversations when it goes such a long way to helping people feel less alone when they are going through something like this.
Roshni, you'll come across people or an individual going through experiencing a panic attack, and you'll hear people speak of or telling that individual to count backwards and starting to count with them. How does that then come into play? Because you find that some individuals will kind of lose control and feel like their heart is about to explode, and those sort of symptoms, or when they talk of that sort of experience, and then you find people telling them to count backwards. When does that come into play?
So those are all different techniques that can help. And it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. That's called grounding techniques.
Roshni, we seem to be losing you. Either you've moved, or I'd like you to go back to the position where you were when we started our conversation, because now we're missing out on a lot.
The exact same position. Can you hear me now?
Okay, much better. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so those are called grounding techniques, and like I said earlier, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Sometimes those would work. Counting backwards, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can touch, different things like that. Certain things work for certain people, and so many different treatments are available. And what is so important to remember is that something like panic disorder is highly treatable, but there are different options or different treatments for different people, and it's so important to identify what those are, and finding the right sort of treatment option. And that's when reaching out to our counselors at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group is so imperative. We can help you identify what sort of resources are available in your area. What would be the best for you? Would you need to reach out to a cognitive behavioral therapist? Would you need to find someone that, do you maybe need medication, And so different treatment options are available for different people. And like the technique you just mentioned, some people may just need different grounding techniques to help calm them during a panic attack. And if you are a loved one, maybe those are different techniques that you need to have in your toolkit, to help calm a loved one.
And talk to us about the impact of alcohol when it comes to panic attacks and anxiety.
So look, using alcohol to calm your nerves, and a lot of people may think that will help, but it is never a good idea. And anyone would tell you that. And so if we had to suggest it, we would say no, not a good idea. And any therapist would always tell you that. And anybody that thinks that that's a good idea, I would encourage you to listen to our webinar this afternoon. We have cognitive behavioral therapist Dr. Kalinda Linda joining us. And she would explain to you why that is not a good idea. When it comes to panic disorder, you need to calm your nerves using other different techniques. And so no, alcohol is not a good idea. And
Roshni, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. We'll leave it there for today.
Thank you.
That's Roshni Pabu Sita, SADC's project manager for education, joining us on the line. It is 12:53 Central African time.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628.
South Africa's Deputy Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Mapaseka Steve Litsike, has expressed deep concern over the escalating crisis of teenage pregnancy in the country. Speaking at a multi-stakeholder engagement in Pretoria on Tuesday, Litsike said that over 90,000 pregnancies were recorded among girls aged 10 to 19 in 2024 alone, with more than 200,000 and 300 pregnancies among girls aged 10 to 14. Our Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe has more.
The engagement with stakeholders is an initiative that seeks to establish a roadmap to South Africa's teenage pregnancy prevention and management response, which includes government, civil society and media. Deputy Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Mapaseka Steve Litsike, underscored the urgent need for a coordinated response to address this issue, stressing that access to education is crucial for the empowerment and well-being of young girls. His remarks comes as part of ongoing effort to combat the persistent scourge of teenage pregnancy and its detrimental impact on the health, rights, education and socio-economic prospects of girls in South Africa.
Now, the urgency of teenage pregnancy and child pregnancy, the statistics have been alluded. Just 2024 alone, over 90,000 pregnancies were recorded amongst girls aged 10 to 19. And 2,328 pregnancies were girls between the ages of 10 to 14. This is not just alarming, because when we say alarming, it will be an understatement. These are our children. Some barely are teens. Some are not even teenagers. And we are now forcing them into motherhood. That's unacceptable.
Teenage pregnancy in South Africa has reached alarming proportions, posing a serious threat to the health, rights, education and socio-economic well-being of girls.
This crisis threatens the very foundation of our social and economic development. It poses a threat to health, to rights, to education, and to socio-economic well-being of girls. When a young girl becomes a mother, her chances of finishing school plummets. Indeed, we have progressed. We are saying as a country, and we've said it, should it happen that a girl child gets pregnant, they must go back to school, because prospects of them thriving relies on access to education.
The gathering also included several United Nations agencies such as UNICEF, UNAIDS and UNESCO. Eva Kiwongo is UNAIDS country director in South Africa, who quoted South Africa's late former President David Mabuza, who called teenage pregnancy a crime.
In his World AIDS address in Shikundu village in Limpopo, former Deputy President Mabuza also spoke about teenage pregnancy, noting we cannot even begin to characterize this as teenage pregnancy, but an act of crime that needs to be prosecuted. It was very clear that we have a teenage pregnancy problem. We know that teenage pregnancy is high, it's leading to school dropouts, it's perpetuating HIV transmission, especially among young adolescent girls and young women, and it is perpetuated by GBV.
Adding salt to the wound is a damning report on the dire impact of teenage pregnancy in South Africa and Zimbabwe due to inaction. Kiwongo again.
Last month, UNAIDS launched a report on the cost of not realizing the sexual and reproductive health and rights of young people in Zimbabwe and South Africa. We use cost of inaction as an indicator of negative impact on the lives of people and communities, of not investing our resources in sexual reproductive health. The cost of inaction for young people is especially significant as the impact extends through most of their life. This report explores the cost of inaction in not realizing the sexual reproductive health needs of young people in South Africa, focusing on adolescent pregnancies, HIV acquisition, and gender-based violation.
More negative is the cost that has come from not addressing teenage pregnancies adequately.
In terms of the calculations in this report, the financial cost to the health system for not addressing teenage pregnancy is $180 million.
And that report by Michael Mbewe. And we say happy Thursday to the Upside team, and it's Tabukhole Kuleni. How are you today?
I am fantastic. Lulu, I understand that today is World Panic Awareness Day or something like that?
Yes, it is. World Panic and Anxiety Awareness Day, yeah.
What does that mean? We must panic or
No,
panic?
No, not panic.
Okay.
World Panic Attacks.
World Panic Attack
Yes,
Day.
World Panic
Awareness,
Attacks.
of course.
Awareness. So, it's a very difficult. Seeing somebody experiencing a panic attack is one of the most scariest things anyone will
experience. Because you don't know where to start,
yes.
what to
do.
Okay.
We're talking that, and Roshni was just giving us an update of how they're commemorating the day, and what people need to do, and SADC is always there to assist people.
Important conversation because it happens unannounced. There are no signs. It just all of a sudden. But it's great to hear that there are ways to manage it if you find yourself near someone who's experiencing it. Today on the Upside, our first conversation is about boosting morale in the workplace during winter. Free hot chocolate, work from home. I think those are for my top tips there.
Free hot chocolate.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how fashion tells African stories, and then how the youth are retelling African stories with a film director by the name of Sfiso Wandile Khoza. That's all coming up on the Upside.
Well, that's coming up at the top of the hour with Matsiko Musito and Tabukhole Kuleni, the Upside team. And for myself, Lulu Gaboo, and the Africa Update team, our producer Tracy Bumgar, technical operator Nanda Koza, and social media Elaine Bengani. It's been a good one. Let's do this again tomorrow and continue with us on our social media platforms. Bye-bye.
SABC News.